The White House held a press briefing on June 26, 2025, with Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt addressing various topics. The briefing was live-streamed and covered by NBC News. No specific details were provided about the discussion's content or outcomes. A new poll reveals Americans are divided on U.S. airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, with 45% opposing the strikes and 38% supporting them. The survey also shows a stark division among independents, with 45% opposing the strikes and 21% supporting them. Meanwhile, Jim Obergefell reflects on the fight for LGBTQ rights 10 years after the landmark Supreme Court decision bearing his name. A recording appears to show the Justice Department coordinated with Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton to kill a state law benefiting undocumented immigrants. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei claimed his country had secured a victory over Israel and delivered a slap in the face to Washington after 8 days of silence. The move comes as Iran's government voted to suspend cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency, stymieing efforts to monitor its uranium enrichment. The U.S. had launched airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, killing top military officials and scientists. Khamenei stated that the Americans failed to achieve anything significant in their attack on nuclear facilities. The suspension of IAEA cooperation would mean inspectors will not be allowed entry into the country unless security is guaranteed. Closing arguments are set to begin Thursday in the high-profile trial of Sean Diddy Combs, who is accused of sex trafficking. Combs' defense team rested their case after calling no witnesses and presenting less than 30 minutes of evidence. The trial has been ongoing since June 26, 2025. The Supreme Court has ruled in favor of South Carolina's bid to defund Planned Parenthood, concluding that individual Medicaid patients cannot sue to enforce their right to choose a medical provider. The 6-3 ruling along ideological lines prevents individual patients from enforcing their right to pick a preferred healthcare provider, boosting the state's effort to prevent Planned Parenthood from receiving funding through Medicaid. The decision could give a boost to other Republican-led states that follow suit. Planned Parenthood has condemned the decision, calling it a grave injustice that will send South Carolina deeper into a healthcare crisis. Federal authorities arrested 76 employees of a Nebraska meatpacking plant on suspicion of using stolen identities to gain employment. The workers, mostly from Latin America, were detained at the Lincoln County Detention Center. An investigation into identity theft and immigration fraud is ongoing. 7 people have been charged in connection with the raid, including 4 protesters who face charges for obstructing law enforcement. The Homeland Security agent leading the operation said the workers used identities of over 100 U.S. citizens, causing financial losses to the victims. Chinese authorities have relocated 4 endangered red pandas from a hotel in China to a central breeding facility, after videos of the animals being used for a wake-up call service went viral, sparking controversy. The move aims to protect the species and prevent further exploitation. Millions across the United States are bracing for another round of oppressive heat after more than a dozen locations from South Carolina to Connecticut set record highs on Wednesday. NBC's Shaquille Brewster reports, and today's Al Roker tracks the forecast. Jim Obergefell and Rick Hodges, the 2 Ohio men whose names became synonymous with the landmark Supreme Court case that legalized same-sex marriage nationwide in 2015, have put aside their differences and become friends. The pair met for coffee after the court's decision and hit it off, despite being on opposite sides of the case. They now see each other regularly at conferences and panels, and are even more frequent this year as they celebrate the 10th anniversary of the ruling. Atlanta sports reporter Tabitha Turner alleges she was pepper-sprayed and physically attacked by an Uber driver over a dispute about the car temperature. The Uber driver, Maricole Smith, is facing charges of misdemeanor battery and simple battery after police reviewed a video of the incident. According to Turner's attorney, the altercation occurred as Turner was being driven home from the airport. and she had requested an Uber Comfort ride with customized temperature settings. However, when the driver arrived, the air conditioner was not turned on, and the windows were rolled down. The situation escalated, and Smith allegedly pepper-sprayed Turner in self-defense. But Turner's attorney claims it was an unprovoked attack. The wife of Vance Boulder, the man accused in the Minnesota lawmaker shootings, has spoken out for the first time. Jenny Boulder called her husband's alleged actions a betrayal and expressed sympathy to the victims' families. The shootings left 2 lawmakers dead and 2 others injured. Boulder was arrested after a 36-hour manhunt following the June 14 attacks on Democratic Minnesota House Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman and State Senator John Hoffman. Prosecutors allege that Boulder, disguised as a law enforcement officer, stalked his victims like prey before opening fire at their homes. The Supreme Court is set to conclude its 9-month term with a flurry of rulings, including a closely watched case concerning President Donald Trump's attempt to end automatic birthright citizenship. The court has 6 cases left to decide, focusing on issues such as voting rights, religious rights, and health care. A ruling on the birthright citizenship case is expected on Friday, its last day of the term. The U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, has terminated Administrative Judge Karen Ortiz for opposing President Donald Trump's executive order declaring only 2 sexes, male and female. Ortiz, who worked in the EEOC's New York office, called the order unethical and criticized Acting Chair Andrea Lucas for complying with it by pausing work on legal cases involving discrimination claims from transgender workers. The EEOC declined to comment on the termination, citing personnel matters. Ortiz plans to continue fighting for civil rights, despite losing her 6-figure job and health insurance. The Costa Rican Constitutional Court has ordered the government to release Asian migrants deported by the Trump administration who have been held in a temporary shelter since February. The court found that the government had violated the migrants' rights by not providing them with timely and sufficient information about their immigration status or giving them access to legal counsel. The ruling requires the government to determine the migrant immigration status, individually, and release those who are eligible within 15 days. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered a halt in aid supplies to Gaza for 2 days to prevent them being seized by Hamas. The decision comes after images circulated of masked men on aid trucks, with clan leaders saying they were protecting the aid, not diverting it to militants. Aid deliveries have been temporarily suspended to allow the military time to develop a new plan. The move is part of an ongoing effort to address concerns about Hamas involvement in aid distribution. Gaza has been devastated by nearly 2 years of war, leaving most of its 2 million inhabitants displaced and facing acute shortages of food and basic supplies. The Trump administration has directed Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to consider cryptocurrency as a federal mortgage asset. The order, signed by FHFA Director William J. Pulte, aims to integrate crypto into traditional financial infrastructure within the U.S. housing finance system. Historically, crypto has been excluded from underwriting frameworks due to volatility and regulatory uncertainty. This directive changes that, allowing borrowers to use digital assets without converting them into U.S. dollars before a loan closes. Mohammed Sabri Solomon, 45, was already charged with attempted first-degree murder and 1 hate crime count in connection with the June 1 attack on Israeli hostage advocates. The new indictment alleges that Solomon targeted the group because of their national origin or perceived national origin. Video footage shows Solomon shouting, "Free Palestine," during the attack. He faces a maximum sentence of life in prison for the federal hate crime charges. A group of Dallas area families and faith leaders have filed a federal lawsuit to block Texas's new law requiring public schools to post the 10 Commandments in every classroom. The plaintiffs claim this measure is an unconstitutional violation of church-state separation. A similar law in Louisiana was blocked by a federal appeals court last week, and lawsuits are expected against Arkansas's law as well. The Texas Education Agency did not immediately respond to requests for comment. An 8-year-old girl was pulled alive and unharmed from a sewer in southern China on Tuesday, more than 7 hours after heavy rain swept her into the drainage ditch. The child survived by holding on to a horizontal bar inside the sewage pipe, which is approximately 32 feet deep. At least 6 people have died, and tens of thousands were evacuated due to widespread flooding in China's southern provinces since June 17. Cudahy Vice Mayor Cynthia Gonzalez appeared to call on street gangs to organize against federal agents conducting immigration sweeps in Los Angeles. In a deleted social media video, she questioned why gang members were not protesting or speaking up about the raids. The Department of Homeland Security condemned her comments as despicable and warned that they could contribute to rising assaults against ICE agents. Gonzalez's remarks have sparked criticism from local officials and the police union, with some calling for her resignation and possible prosecution. Tanner Martin, a Utah father who went viral for documenting his journey with stage 4 colon cancer, has died at the age of 27. His wife, Shay Wright, announced his passing on June 25, just weeks after they welcomed their first child, Amy Lou. Martin was diagnosed with terminal cancer in November 2020 and had been given a prognosis of 2 to 5 years to live. Despite this, he and Wright were determined to start a family together, using IVF to conceive their daughter. Martin documented his journey on social media, sharing his hopes and fears about being a father despite his illness. He passed away surrounded by his loved ones, leaving behind his newborn daughter and wife.